Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest, Joanna Shakti, who's here to share with us soul love. So are you looking to develop a deeper connection, not only with yourself, but others? Well, today's show is just for you. So Joanna Shakti is the soul love mentor and founder of Ecstatic Intimacy, which is smart, sexy, and a little bit spicy. You can't miss her passion and warm, playful style that both entertains and inspires. Joanna artfully and professionally mixes male and female dynamics, leadership training, spiritual awakening, engineering, and even tantra, along with a whole lot of love to lead singles and couples who hunger for deeper love and more sacred pleasure to find and create true soul-to-soul relationships. So welcome to the show, Joanna Shakti.
Thank you. I am so looking forward to spending this time with you.
Oh my goodness, it's such an honor to have you here and to talk about this topic. What I found so interesting, a lot of times when people think of relationships, they think about intimacy in different ways. So, how do you present that?
Yeah, great question. And intimacy is one of those things that I believe gets so confused. And most people, in my experience, take intimacy and define it or convert it to what happens in the bedroom. And yet, especially in soulful relationships are about the connection of the whole being. And they are rooted in a connection of the heart. And truthfully, probably the most scariest, but the most important expression of intimacy is the version of intimacy that we might define as into me you see. And we all in loving relationships want to feel like we can be at home in ourselves, that we don't have to perform, that we don't have to walk on eggshells, that we don't have to be something except ourselves. So we crave that love of ourselves. And yet, because we're afraid who we are isn't worthy of love, isn't enough for love, or is too much for love, we have all kinds of stories. We will put on the fronts and we'll do the things that we think will get us love or keep our relationships intact, but they actually become the things that sabotage us. And so the courage to have intimacy, that real intimacy that says, I let you see into me, comes from our courage to be ourselves, our courage to be authentic. And then we can have the most potent, I'll call it ecstatic, but again, ecstatic gets associated with bedroom activity as well. And ecstatic is really the union of love and joy and peace and beauty and passion that makes us come alive in ourselves and in our relating, and hence our impact in the world. So, intimacy is this place of we are real, we are authentic. I know me. That's the into me I see, so that we can have into me you see between us that strengthens and deepens that bond of loving in all its expressions.
My goodness, what an inspiration you are, especially when we talk about, this topic. What even had this, come on your radar? How did you even get interested in this?
Oh my gosh, Marianne. Well, long story short, is I grew up in the heart of the 70s, heart of the women's movement, the beginning of the divorce movement. And making that long story short, it massively conditioned me to who I was supposed to be in the world, what a good woman did or didn't do. And the divorce aspect of it really influenced my perspective towards men or masculine beings. And it massively impacted my own self worth. So we'll take all of those pieces and fast forward. I made sure that I was never going to depend on a man, that I was strong and independent, that strong, independent woman persona. And I longed for love, but I pushed love away. So I end up getting an electrical engineering degree and eventually an MBA. And I start climbing the corporate ladder in oil and gas and high tech in Houston, Texas in the 90s. And to say that it was a masculine dominated world is a massive understatement. Simultaneously, I married 6'3", blonde hair, blue eyed par golfer, concert pianist, valedictorian, you name it, Prince Charming. And we couldn't make it work. And there were so many dynamics in intimacy in all its expressions that impacted why we couldn't make it work. And so through that divorce in my late 20s, I started looking at what's wrong with the men, what's wrong with the relationships. But eventually it all turned back on me. And it was never them. It was me. It was the insecurity. It was the performance. It was the drive to get love, get respect, get security, all of those things. But the self abandonment that was underneath that was enormous. So my journey back to true love, my journey back to fulfillment meant I had to find out who I was. And I had to trust that I was lovable. And hence the tie of what we just talked about in the intimacy was I had to rebuild this relationship with me. And one of the premises at the heart of our work, and it's one that frustrates people. But if we want to get where we want in loving relationships, the sooner we accept this truth, the better. And it's that the strength of the relationship with ourselves determines or limits the strength of the relationship that we can have with anyone else. And so I had to come back home to me. I had to decipher this thing that we call self-love and turn it into something real and practical. I had to have an intimate relationship with myself. And I had to claim the feminine being that I was, that had been very conditioned and even shamed out of me. So that coming home made me so much more available for the beauties of romantic love, but all expressions of love and my own fulfillment.
I just love that. I think that that's so important. And it's interesting because when we look at the workplace in the 70s, 80s, what have you, I mean, women were even, the style was even to have women dress as men. So we were so masculated by the time that we're trying to find relationships that really are empowering. I think it was just so difficult for so many of us women.
Absolutely. I had those jackets with the shoulder pads in it that you're talking about.
Me
Absolutely.
too.
That was the thing. And we learned to model masculine energy. But while we were learning to model masculine energy, because and on some level, the truth is it is what has allowed so many women and feminine beings to climb that corporate ladder. But we thought it was the only way. And what we're coming to all these years later is it's not the only way. And the cost to feminine beings has been enormous as we sold out our hearts, our bodies, our needs. And I say our bodies because we moved into exhaustion. We moved into a place of go, 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 drive, drive, drive at a level that these bodies, in my opinion, were not orchestrated to carry. And so there's been a cost in our happiness, in our physicality, in our health, and in our loving relationships because masculine energy and feminine energy are attracted to each other. And it's usually the polarity, the difference between those two energies that creates the attractive force and then the sustainable attraction over time. And so, with that, I'll also say that while it's been challenging for feminine beings, and not all women are predominantly feminine, so I want to name that. Like, we could talk on this topic for hours and days and weeks, but I try to name the really important things. Not all men are masculine. What's important is that we discover what that true energy is for us. And most of us have been conditioned out of it. Masculine beings have had their own version of so much societal challenge. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to offend women. And then they abandon themselves trying to be the good guy. And so we're in a process in this work, but really societally to unravel these dynamics that said you're supposed to be a certain way to be a good woman, a good man, a good person. And in the process, abandoning ourselves and damaging the attractive forces in our relationships.
So I know you talk about soul love. What is that?
Yeah, soul love. Oof, such a powerful force. Love has so many different definitions. And if I were to name love itself, it is the universal acceptance. It's when we say unconditional love, that is the greatest pointer. Love comes with no condition. Now we're in human form and we have our egos and our minds and our fears, and we have a lot of conditionality, especially when we do romantic love. And one of the invitations is, as we said earlier, what we want to be loved for is ourselves. We don't want to have to perform or be a certain way in order to have that love. So, soul love is a love that has an aspect of recognition to it. And I say an aspect of recognition, I don't necessarily mean that we're talking past lives, but there's a harmony, there's a resonance when two people's whose souls, and I'll call souls the unique expression within each of us. And that unique expression being the expression of both the blessings that we're meant to receive, the contributions that we're meant to make, and the lessons that we need to learn to have both of those experiences. So, soul love brings together, often romantically, but this can happen in business partnerships, it can happen in family dynamics, it can happen in friendships. These souls come together and there's a resonance, there's a vibration. We are here to contribute to each other. We are here, in other words, the core of how I define it is we are here to evolve each other's souls. We're here to make each of us a grander expression of ourselves. And what's the myth, and where so many people actually can walk away from soulful connections, is that we think that when we meet our soulmate, it's all going to be rainbows and fairy tales. And there's an aspect of a fairy tale nature to a soulful connection. And there is also, because by definition, we are here to evolve each other's souls, it means we're going to push each other up against the edges of our comfort zones. We're going to push each other's buttons. We're going to trigger the places where we hold ourselves back because it's an invitation, a call to reclaim who we are. So soul love is this place that invites us individually and together to become all of who we were meant to be in this human form, and to have the love and the joy and the passion and the peace that we were designed to experience. But it's through walking through those challenging moments that we get access to that grandest expression of ourselves, the grandest expression of love, and the grandest expression of union that we can have in these soulful partnerships.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with intimacy expert Joanna Shakti in regards to soul love. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Have you dreamt of writing your own book but felt lost on where to start? Introducing DIYbook.us, your personal guide to bringing stories to life. Whether it's your life story, business insights, or unique experiences, DIYbook.us makes it easy and affordable. With our step-by-step online program, you'll receive a weekly email prompt tailored to you. Don't let your story go untold. Visit www.DIYbook.us and start your writing journey today with our free 7-day trial. DIYbook.us, where your story comes to life.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with intimacy expert Joanna Shakti, who's here to share with us soul love. So before we left for break, we were talking about having these deep, intimate relationships with ourselves and with others, and really this soulful relationship. Is that something that everybody can obtain?
10,000%. With that, we have to be willing to get to know ourselves. And sometimes that is the scariest thing that we can do as human beings because of all the conditioning that we've been talking about. But what I have seen is, oh my gosh, I've had the blessing in our programs. I have people in their 20s to their 80s. And it doesn't matter where we come on to this journey. I remember witnessing this particular woman wasn't in my program, but at an event that I was supporting. And she was 92 years old, and she opened her eyes from this experience and she said, now I can start living my life. And that woman moved me. There was no limit to what we can experience. There is no time limit to when we can have love, when we can have our greatest joys, when we can have a life that takes our breath away. And so it takes some courage. I will not say that this is the easiest path, but the courage to see ourselves, the courage to begin to have a little bit of vulnerability. We've been so conditioned in our world, and this is part of the masculine energy, to be armored, to be defended, to have that constant upper hand. And feminine beings and masculine beings all do it because we've been so conditioned. But where love gets in is where we get softer and more tender. And again, masculine beings and feminine beings all have that capacity. It's just a matter of, are we willing to slow down and get a little bit intimate, a little bit real, a little bit authentic with ourselves and each other. And often that can be accelerated and truly supported by being in a community or having some support around that, because it does take courage and we can't see our blind spots. And when it gets uncomfortable, our natural human reaction is to pull away. But if we can take a pause in those moments when we want to pull away, even in an upset in a relationship, if we can take a pause and say, oh, wait, there's love here. Oh, wait, there's courage here. Then we can have an entirely different quality of connection and relating and life experience. So absolutely available to everyone.
Well, that is very encouraging. Are there steps that we can take to kind of prepare for love?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 phases that I describe as the soul love journey, because the preparing really comes in the first phase. And so the way that I've, over these last 20 years since I left corporate, that I've really seen this path unfold is that if we'll look at self first, and this is what we've been talking about, but let's give it some framework, or this is what we've been talking about, let's give it some framework, is that this relationship to ourself, the quality of that determines the quality of the relationship that we have with another. So we'll call the self part, the first phase of this journey, and a journey of authenticity. And I even like to call it ecstatic authenticity, where ecstatic authenticity means I know who I am. I know my needs, my wants, my desires, my turn ons, my turn offs, my boundaries, my yeses, my nos. And in that, I also know how to express them in a conscious way. And I'm willing to be seen in my beauty and my mess, in my strength and my vulnerability. And with that, I actually have come to like myself and eventually maybe even love myself, so much so that there's no longer a willingness to twist ourselves into a pretzel, to settle or sell out for anybody or anything. And that's the moment that we actually become available for love. That's the moment that we no longer need to find a partner. We can choose a partner, which means we no longer have to end up with partners that are not really a good fit for us because we're choosing them and they're choosing them. So this wholeness, not perfectness, but coming into a wholeness and an appreciation of self. This ecstatic authenticity sets us up for the second phase of the journey, which is the ecstatic intimacy. And that ecstatic intimacy is where we bond heart to heart and soul to soul and body to body, where we are coming together to honor a place of our challenges, this soulful love. And that our challenges and our conflicts become a connection, a communion, so to speak, where the strength of that relationship is so deeply bonded because of what we have navigated together. And that sets us up when we marry ecstatic authenticity, the beingness, with ecstatic intimacy, the relatedness. That gives us the ecstatic ecstasy. And what that means is that we have a life and a love that takes our breath away, moment by moment by moment. Not every moment, but it's not that we have a few breathtaking moments in life, but a breathtaking life where so commonly I hear, I had no idea it could be this way. No idea the love could be this deep. No idea that the joy could be this strong. And so to your question, how do we prepare to have that ecstatic intimacy, to have that ecstatic ecstasy, the breathtaking experiences? We build a relationship with ourselves. And one of the most important things in that is to counteract all the ways that we have been conditioned to abandon ourselves. Soulful love is not about putting the other person first all the time. It's about being ourselves and tending to ourselves, and then we can care for another partner. But authenticity is the bond that glues us, and self-abandonment is the thing that creates resentment and destroys relationships.
So to piggyback on that, I mean, there's so many people out there that have been hurt or disappointed in relationships. So how do they move to a place where they can start opening their heart back up?
Yeah, great question. And where those who have felt that hurt heartbreak, ended relationships, divorces, it's coming back to well, I'll call it one core thing that has some supporting factors, and it's what I call conscious endings. And the good news is we can do conscious endings with relationships that ended decades ago. We can do conscious endings and we don't need the other person to participate because it's really about a conscious completion for us. And any relationship that's had heartbreak in it, that's had challenge, it's really easy to think it was all the other person. And the empowering place, you've spoke about empowerment. The empowering place is actually to be able to look at it and say, yeah, this was their part, but here was my part. Here were the things that I didn't stand up for in myself. Here's what I didn't speak about. Here's where I got upset or reactive. Doesn't matter what it is, but being able to see their part, see our part, come to a place of self forgiveness, come to a place of other forgiveness, come to a place of letting go of the hurt that's in our bodies. Because if we're still carrying the judgment, the anger, the tears, our bodies really want to let go of that. So creating a conscious space where that can fall away. And then when we're not armoring against, I don't want that to happen again, we rebuild that relationship with ourselves. There's a common theme here. We rebuild the trust that we don't have to recreate that relationship or that kind of relationship or that relationship dynamic again. We trust ourselves that we're a different person. And then we can open to receive the love that is so meant for us, that we're calling in, and that the soulful connections that we're meant to make are also calling us in. So it is that place of healing and forgiveness, conscious completion, so to speak, that allows us to open up to love in this moment of our lives.
So when we start doing this inner work, our work on ourselves, is this allowing us then to not only clear the baggage of the past, but to be kind of like in a different wavelength so that when we do come out on the other side of this place healed or in a healing process, that the people that we're actually attracting into our lives are in their own sense kind of healed and have been working on themselves as well?
10,000%. It is really there's a resonant frequency in the universe. And where we are, we will attract, talk about soulful connections. We will attract those that are in similar places that need to work with similar things. And so, even talk about attachment styles. It's so often that a quote avoidant attachment style will partner with an anxious attachment style because they're going to push each other's buttons to invite themselves to find, in the case of anxious, the security within themselves. In the case of avoidant, the security with themselves to know that they actually have the capacity to trust love, to trust themselves, to open up to love. So that's just an example. We could come up with a myriad of examples of how we attract people to help us evolve in whatever way that we need to evolve in that moment, to help us release whatever it is we need to release that no longer serves our greatest heart, or no longer serves our greatest soul. And then as we let go, it is my experience and belief that we are always on this evolutionary journey. That as we expand our authenticity, we expand our intimacy, we expand our ecstasy, but then we come back round and we call in more intimacy, which means it invites more authenticity, and it becomes this ever expanding upward spiral of goodness and joy and beauty, and of course, love. And so in that, we're always meeting a partner that will meet us where we are and expand with us. So absolutely, there is a resonant vibration. And this is also true in masculine and feminine energies. And that if we're predominantly, one of the things that I'll explain it this way so that I can say it fairly quickly, is so many feminine beings have been so conditioned to be so masculine that they end up embodying masculine energy. But they're really attracted to a partner who carries masculine energy. And yet they end up attracting one of the masculine beings who has abandoned their masculine energy, is moving more in a feminine or passive or softer energy. But the dynamic is okay. It's got some polarity, but it's never sustaining or fulfilling for either partner. So coming into that energetic alignment in ourselves, whether it's our own soul's evolution or it's this masculine feminine energy dynamic, the energy of what's happening in our being dictates the energy that we will attract. And when feminine beings who are authentically feminine come into their authentic energy, masculine beings that are authentically masculine and come into their authentic masculinity, or balanced beings who come into their authentic expression of both, then we can have truly exciting and sustainable attractive connections with where we are now that allows our next evolution and our next deepest experience of breathtaking moments.
So, do you work with men, women, and people who are single and folks who are in relationships?
Everyone. And I say everyone, but here's why it's interesting. I have found, because of the masculine feminine energy dynamics, that it's so important to have a community where we're witnessing others evolving through and reclaiming these energies, bringing those that are, I mentioned, more balanced beings. They also get to see those expressions of masculinity and femininity so that they can reclaim it within themselves. Singles and couples, there's so much that singles teach the couples and couples teach the singles. So I have found that by creating retreats and programs in our community spaces where we are all coming together as human beings, souls embodied, we have so much to learn from each other. And that by one person moving their energy, it helps all the others in the space that need to move that similar energy to move theirs. So yes, we make the most potent and alchemical container by bringing men and women, singles, couples, everyone on the gender spectrum into the space of soul love, because it applies to all of us, no matter where we are in this path of life, on this path of love.
I understand you have quite a bit of events coming up. So if someone's looking to learn more about your events and be part of your community, where should they go?
Yes, absolutely. So the website is ecstaticintimacy.com. And on there, you will find an events calendar. You will find many retreats. We always have new retreats coming up, as well as some online events for those that are not as local. And there are a few events in Colorado. If you happen to be in Colorado, we have some evening events as well. But the website will bring you all of the resources in the calendar for everything that is upcoming.
Well, Joanna, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you and the beautiful questions that led to such a sweet conversation of love. Thank you, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Joanna. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about soul love. Make sure to visit Joanna's website at ecstaticintimacy.com for more information on how you can have a deeper connection with yourself and others. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.